Hi, everybody. Welcome to another live stream. Lar from Complete Test Success here. So today we are looking at IELTS Writing Task 2. So what we do in these live streams, just in case you're new, is I share a question with you. I get you to write the various parts of the essay and share it with me in the comments. So then what I'll do is I'll give you feedback on things you're doing right, things you're doing wrong, what mistakes you're making, and basically explain to you what things you need to focus on to improve your scores. So I'll explain what your mistakes are, you fix them, your scores go up. So that's basically what we're doing. Hi, Domenico. Good to see you here. Hi, Ramalia. Welcome back. Hatun, doing good. Thank you. Princess Helent, hello to you too. Good to see you back here again. Okay, so let me share the question with you guys. What are we doing here today? This question. In some cultures, it's common for young adults to move out of their family homes as soon as possible. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this situation? Okay, so as with every IELTS question, we need to start by paraphrasing. So the first part of our essay is to paraphrase the question. So that's my first task for you today. Write the paraphrase, share it with me in the comments, and I'll tell you if you're making any mistakes. The most important thing, it has to have the same meaning and it has to be clear. Those are the most important things. So two things. Does it have the same meaning? Is it easy to understand? After that, the range of vocab, how many words you change, changing the grammar, that comes next. So more important than changing every word is having the same meaning and making sure it's clear. So when you're ready, share your comments with me share your answer with me in the comments and I'll have some feedback for you. Domenico, speaking and listening 7.5. Very nice. That's great. Well done. Good job, Domenico. Hi, Mandeep. Welcome to the lesson. Was waiting for this for so long. Okay, good. Glad you're here. Glad you're getting your chance. Hi, Farazipur. Hello to you. I'm Inder. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Hope you're good too. Okay, so write the paraphrase, share it with me, and I will give you feedback. Hi, Fazal. Good to see you here. Okay, here's our first paraphrase. Adolescents and young adults wouldn't be the same. Adolescents would be younger, so it wouldn't be the same group. So like I was saying earlier on, when you're paraphrasing the question, having the same meaning is more important than, trying to change every word. So changing as much vocab as you can is an important part of the paraphrase, but it should have the same meaning. So if you've changed the meaning, that's not better than copying the word. So copying the word in this case would be better. So the phrase is all over the world. So if we said young adults all over the world nowadays mostly prefer leaving their parental houses as reach the age of adulthood or even earlier. It doesn't say that they prefer to do it. What they say, it's common to do it. So to prefer, when you use the word prefer, that shows how they feel. But in the question, it doesn't say if they like it or if they don't like it. It just says that it's common. It could be a cultural norm where that's what's expected, not necessarily that that's what they would like most. So with the paraphrase, what you're doing here is you're actually changing too many words, because the words you're changing don't have the same meaning. So for you right now, the best thing to do would actually be change fewer words, and that would keep the meaning the same. Obviously, you know, the more you can change, the better. So continue studying vocabulary, continue improving your vocab. And as your vocabulary gets better, you will be able to change more accurately. But right now, you're changing too much and it's making it inaccurate. So change less for now, continue studying vocab, and just do the best you can with your current level. Ramalia says, in certain societies, it is customary for younger generations to leave their parents' dwellings as soon as they can. What are the pros and cons of this practice? So, okay, everything good, but we don't need to paraphrase that last bit. Okay, so Ramalia, let me just take Ramalia's paraphrase. This is a good paraphrase, and I'm going to add it to the document on the screen. Okay. So, right. Now, when we're paraphrasing the question, we need to paraphrase this bit. We don't paraphrase this bit. So where Ramalia has written down what are the pros and cons of this practice, that's not part of the question. So what we'll do next is we'll say that what advantages and disadvantages we're going to talk about. So this is our response to this will come next, but it's not part of the paraphrase. So in certain societies, it is customary for younger generations to leave their parents' dwellings as soon as they can. And that's enough. That's perfect. Okay, so that's the first paraphrase. For those of you who haven't already shared your paraphrase, just continue. But the next task I have for you is to consider what main ideas can we use. So for this question, what are the advantages and disadvantages? So they've asked us quite clearly advantages. So I'll just highlight that. That's plural. So we have to have more than one. And disadvantages, again, that's plural. So we have to have more than one. So for this question, we're going to need 4 ideas. We're going to have 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages. So that's my next task for you here today. Can you tell me what main ideas we can use? Now, the thing to consider as well is when you're thinking of your main ideas, there are 2 requirements. Your ideas must all be relevant. They must be all about what the question has asked us to talk about. The other thing is they must be specific. If we use vague ideas, what happens is you end up with a list of specific ideas when you try to explain them and a band 6 for task achievement. So we want a specific idea, not a vague one, and make sure all the ideas are relevant. Okay, so I'll leave that with you for now. When you're ready, share it with me in the comments and I'll tell you if your ideas are okay or not. Hi, Hamid. Good to see you here. Okay. In some cultures, young adults commonly relocate to other places, leaving their family homes. Okay, so your paraphrase is good, but what's missing is some information. So remember, I said your paraphrase must have the same meaning as the question. And in the question, it says, as soon as possible. And there's nothing in your paraphrase that communicates that piece of information. So your paraphrase is missing part of the information. Your paraphrase is missing some of the information from the question. So that's something that you need to consider. Abu from Bangladesh, good to see you. Welcome here. Welcome, Abu. It is primarily because it is common for these countries, for young children to become responsible for themselves at an early age and start to become independent early. So is that 2 ideas? It is common for them to become responsible at an early age and they start to become independent early. It feels like that's one idea. Because if you're responsible for yourself, you're independent. I think this is the same idea twice. And this is something you need to be very careful with, actually. If you use the same idea 2 times, so you make it, you're trying to say it's 2 ideas, but it's really one idea, that's counted as a repetitive idea. And that can actually get you a band 4 for task achievement. So this is really important to avoid this. If you're saying they're more responsible and they're more independent, is it 2? They're not the exact same thing, to be responsible for yourself and to be independent. It's the same thing. No, that's going to be counted as repetitive. So we could use one of these, but we definitely wouldn't want to use both. Okay. So they become independent at an earlier age. Okay. So let's add that to the document here. Okay. Main advantages. Oh, excuse me. I'm completely wrong. I'm completely wrong. I've completely missed this. I've completely missed this. You're explaining why. You're explaining why it happens, which isn't what the question has asked us to talk about whatsoever. So the thing that I said about the ideas being repetitive, that is a problem. But another problem is that you're explaining why it happens, and we haven't been asked about that. I didn't recognize that the first time I looked at the ideas. We've been asked for advantages and disadvantages. So what you've given me is neither an advantage or a disadvantage. This isn't an advantage or a disadvantage. You're explaining why it happens. So earlier on, when I said your ideas must be relevant, your ideas must be about what the question asked you to talk about, this is what I was talking about. These ideas are not relevant because the question didn't ask you for the reasons why. And that would mean that you're going to get a band 5 or lower, possibly a band 4 for task achievement, because your ideas are not about what the question has asked us to talk about. So this is a perfect example of an irrelevant idea. They asked the question asked for one thing, you gave them something completely different, and that's what we want to avoid. So remember, your ideas must be relevant and specific. So those are the two things to be careful of, and just something to be careful of moving forward. When you're thinking of ideas next, make sure you analyze the question more carefully and that your ideas are definitely about what the question has asked you to discuss. Mandeep, in some religions, no, it's about culture, not religion. You know, you could have people from the same culture who are different religion. So you don't have to be the same religion to be the same culture. So those are not the same thing. It is common for young people to move out of their close ones. A close one is a person who's close to you, but we're talking about the home, not move out of the person, but move out of the home as soon as they can. So as soon as they can is a good paraphrase. But again, you've changed too much, and a little part of it there where you say close ones isn't clear. Hatun, in some nations, young people moving out of their family homes as fast as they can. So you have no verb. Young people moving. So this is still part of the same clause. Young people moving out of their family homes as fast as they can. And then we need a verb. So this is just what you've written as the subject. So let's say young people moving out of their family homes as fast as they can is very common. So you need the subject. Sorry, you have the subject, you need the verb, and you need the object. So that's an incomplete sentence. Grammatically, that's incomplete. You're very welcome. No problem. It is primarily because it is common in these countries for young children to become responsible for, so we looked at that already. There are both positives and negative sides, which I will outline here. This is one way to write an introduction. So you just have a general phrase, but the problem is that you're not showing that you've understood the question. And for coherence and cohesion, you're not connecting your introduction with the other paragraphs. So what we want to do is include the specific ideas in our introduction. So we're going to say exactly what 2 advantages and what 2 disadvantages we're going to discuss. So we want 4 ideas. We're going to put all of those ideas in our introduction. In some cultures, it is the practice for young adults to leave their parents' homes, and then you need to finish that with as soon as possible. So you need to include all the information. It may be difficult for them to survive on their own. Okay, so that would be our first idea. So this is about why the situation is an advantage or disadvantage. Okay, so the main advantages of this situation are A and B, while the disadvantages are C, and we'll just put in what we have here. It may be difficult for them to survive on their own. Perfect. So I'll just add that now. Okay. All right. So we still need idea A, B, and C. We have our fourth idea. Okay. So keep the ideas coming in. Let's see if we can fill up the rest of these here. Fazal, in certain societies, it is a prevalent practice for many youths to live independent residences as they get opportunity. There's the vocab isn't quite right. Live in independent residences. We wouldn't describe a residence as independent. So we might say live independently from their families as soon as they get the opportunity. So vocab and grammar mistakes here would make it a little bit difficult for the reader to follow. So just continue working generally on vocab and grammar to help you with that. Romalia, we can consider the sense of independence, financial stability, and personal development. Okay, good. So this is three things. Financial stability, I'm not sure how we would develop that. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong, but the problem is I don't understand it. So I'd say, like, if you live in your family home versus if you're living in another home, surely it's going to cost more money to live outside the family home. So my problem there is trying to understand how would you be more financially stable if you move out of home. I'm not sure how that would work. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong. You might be able to explain it to me and I go, oh, okay, now I understand. But when I look at it, I don't immediately see that. But sense of independence and personal development, I can definitely see how that's going to be relevant. So I'm going to add those. So AR, a sense of independence and personal development. Now I need to change that. I know that's not grammatically accurate. So the main advantages of this situation are the sense of independence that these young adults experience and the personal development. Move that over here. Okay, so the main advantages of this situation are the sense of independence and personal development that these young adults experience, while the disadvantages are C, and it may be difficult for them to survive on their own. Okay, so we're just left with one more idea. We need one more disadvantage to finish our introduction. Independence, self-reliance, enhanced skills of time management and money budgeting. Good. Yeah, so those all work. Independence and self-reliance, again, we talked about that earlier. I would worry that that's really one idea, not two ideas. So I would just go on one of those rather than both of those, and then everything else is okay. Whereas the biggest advantage is that they become more mature to life decisions. Good. Since they make smart decisions for surviving to be successful in life. Good. Advantages are becoming independent and better careers, and disadvantages are missing family love or have to face many problems. Okay, all of these ideas are good except the last one. Face many problems. So earlier on, remember I said there are two things you need to make sure of. You need to make sure your ideas are relevant, and you need to make sure they're specific. So we already saw an example of an irrelevant idea where one of the students said what was causing the situation, but we haven't been asked for the cause. So that idea was irrelevant. It wasn't about what the question asked us to talk about. Here we have a vague idea. So this is a good example of the other problem that we would see in a main idea. So they have to face many problems. So when I read that, I don't know what problems you're thinking about. So I can guess. I can guess maybe you're thinking about this problem or this problem or this problem, but I never really know, are my guesses the same as the problems you're thinking about? So that's a vague idea when I'm not really sure if I know what you're thinking. So when you say they'll miss their family's love, it's like, oh, okay, that's very clear. I know exactly what you're talking about. But face many problems, like, like I'll have to read and find out later. So later in the essay, I'll probably find out what problems you're thinking of, but at the moment, I don't know. So that's a vague idea. And this is the other type of problem that you must avoid when you're generating main ideas for your essay. So what you would do instead is take one of those problems. So instead of saying they'll face many problems, you think about one specific problem that you're thinking of and replace that and put that in as your main idea. So don't say many problems, choose one, put that in instead. Okay, so missing their families, definitely that's suitable. So I'm going to take that as our other disadvantage and say, well, the disadvantages are they miss their families and it is more difficult for them to survive, and it may be more difficult for them to survive on their own. I'm going to change may to is, because this is the disadvantage, and even if the person does or doesn't find it difficult, it's still in general more difficult. So instead of using modals, I prefer just to say definitely it is the disadvantage, not it might be. It just makes my argument a little bit stronger. Okay, so well done. We are finished our introduction. What we're looking at here is the introduction. So from there, we need to write our body paragraph. Okay. So what we need to think about next is how we're going to write the essay. Now, the structure is going to be like this. So this is our first body paragraph. The first disadvantage of young adults leaving their homes possible is that, sorry, we're starting with the advantages. The first advantage of young adults leaving their family homes as soon as possible is that, and what did we say up here? We're going to use the same first idea from here. The sense of independence is that they feel a strong sense of independence. Okay, so what I want you guys to do next is I want you to tell me how can we develop this idea? So they'll feel a strong sense of independence. I need you to develop that for me. Let me make this bit of text. Let me make the introduction a bit smaller because it's important that we continue focusing on the question. So we can't just talk about anything we want. We need to stay focused on what the question asked us to talk about. So that's why it's important that you can see the question while you are writing this. Okay. So that's the next task for me. How can we develop this idea? In the comments, tell me how you think you would develop it. I will tell you if your response is appropriate and, of course, give you feedback on how to improve. Okay, Raisa, in some tradition, it is very normal for young adults to move from their houses where they live with their family as early as possible. Okay, so in a tradition and a culture isn't the same. I know they sound very similar and there's a lot of crossovers, but it's not exactly the same. So tradition would be more something that you do. And of course, each culture would have their own traditions. Like for example, at Christmas, we put up a Christmas tree. Like that's a tradition and it's part of Western culture. So that is different. They're different things. Okay, so in some cultures, it's normal. We would never say very normal for young adults to move from their houses where they live with their family, where they lived because it's past tense if they've moved with their families, as soon as possible. And also be careful with punctuation. You need capital letters, commas, full stops. All of those things are missing from your writing, so you need to be careful with those as well, Risa. Domenico, in various cultures, it is a prevalent practice for young adults to leave their family homes at the earliest opportunity. Very nice. Good job, Domenico. Skipping birthplace is very difficult for youngsters. So skipping wouldn't be the right word there. But again, what we were saying earlier about your ideas being specific, this idea isn't specific. You say it's very difficult. So that would be a disadvantage, is that it's difficult, but it's not very specific. And like, why exactly is it difficult, or what's difficult about it? So with the advantages that we chose for our essay already, we said that they'll miss their families. So that's one reason it's difficult. Or it's difficult for them to survive on their own. That's another reason why it's difficult. So we don't want to use a vague idea like this. We want to use specific ideas to make sure that we're getting the highest possible task achievement score. Okay. The major benefits of this tendency are self-reliance and financial stability. Good. Yeah, definitely. Those would work. They're relevant and they're specific. Personal growth and independence. Good. Loneliness. Definitely. I think that's what we already mentioned with missing the family. So we could have said that, they're lonelier or they miss their family. So that's really the same idea, just different vocab. So yeah, that one's okay too. By moving out, that helps young people to be independent and take their own responsibility, whereas it costs more money. Good. And living with their family also causes loneliness. Living without their family, you said with instead of without. Okay, independent and take their own responsibility. Again, that's the same thing. If you're being independent, you're being responsible for yourself. So we wouldn't use both of those. We can only use one of those. And like I said earlier in the lesson, if we used both of these, we'd end up with a band 4 for task achievement, because we have repetitive ideas. So be careful with that too. Unstable incomes. Well, it's not necessarily that their income isn't going to be stable. Like if I live at home or if I live out of home, that doesn't really affect the job that I have. So it's not that the income, it's that your finances. Like you have to spend more on food. You have to spend more on, just the whatever groceries or household. Household. Oh God, I can't even think. Shampoos, washing powder, all that stuff. Oh my God, my brain's gone blank. I can't remember what they're called. So I could see that they would need to spend more, but not necessarily that they would earn less. So I think you've got the wrong vocab there. Breakdown in family bonds. Would it? So a breakdown in family bonds would be like, instead of having a good relationship with your family members, you'd have a bad relationship. I don't really see how moving out of home would. And again, that doesn't mean that I'm right. That doesn't mean I'm right. If you can explain why, people move out of home and suddenly they've got a terrible relationship with their family members, that's fine. Just at the moment, I can't imagine how that would happen. Why suddenly, you've been getting on really well with your family all your life, you move out of home and then suddenly you don't have a good relationship anymore. I'm not sure how that would happen. So I'm not saying you're wrong. If you explain that idea clearly, then that would be fine. But right now, I would be concerned that maybe that wouldn't be possible to explain. So if you could explain it, no problem. The benefit of this sentence, person's is okay. So we looked at that already. Lacking valuable advice and guidance when needed. Okay, so that would be one idea. That would be one idea. One thing I would say, and this isn't really a rule the IELTS test, this is just kind of like my own way of teaching my students. So what you've said is perfect and is completely acceptable for the IELTS test as one idea. It's relevant and it's specific. But what I teach my students is when you see the word "and" in the middle of an idea, to me that should trigger a little alarm bell in that, like, why do I need the word "and"? Now, in this case, it's that you are kind of repeating yourself. They need advice and guidance. It's fine. It's the same thing. But do you really need to repeat yourself? Well, not really. So if you just said lacking valuable advice when needed, that would be fine. If you said lacking valuable guidance when needed, that would be fine. It's the same thing. So it's a little bit of repetition, but it wouldn't be bad for your score. But another bigger problem that happens when you have the word "and" in a main idea is that it's actually two ideas, not one. And if you think it's one idea, but it's really two ideas, well, then you have to explain both of them. And if you only explain one instead of both, then you're going to reduce your task achievement score. So my advice for students is whenever you see the word "and," if it's one idea and it has the word "and," you're probably better to delete one side. So either in this case, it's repetition and it's not a big deal. So if we delete it, it doesn't change anything. Or maybe it really is two ideas, and by deleting it, you're making your job much easier to get a higher task achievement score. So you haven't done anything wrong, Romalia. I'm just saying that when we have the word "and" in a main idea, I always see that as a reason to be concerned. In this case, it's okay, but in many cases, it is problematic. Disadvantages, they will feel homesick sometimes. Yep, definitely. We had that already. The biggest disadvantage is they become susceptible to peer influence and they would have no person guiding them for decisions. Okay, good. So what I'm going to do, just because we're 30 minutes into the lesson, I'm not going to look at any more responses to the paraphrase or the ideas. I'm just going to focus on what we have here. So the task at hand, instructions, how can we develop this idea? So how can we develop the idea that moving out of home gives people a strong sense of independence? So I'm just going to find the ideas, the responses relevant to that. So just so that we're moving forward with the lesson, because even the new comments about ideas are still the same ideas we've looked at already. So I'm kind of repeating myself. Okay, so I think Mamadul's response is related to the prompt, or sorry, the question that I've asked, which is how can we develop the idea of it creates a sense of independence? When an individual leaves their home, they can enjoy a life that is free from any kind of restrictions. That is because oftentimes families put a lot of bindings on their members, a lot of maybe responsibilities on their members. So if I'm right that you're responding to that we're trying to develop that idea, it doesn't feel relevant. So you're telling me maybe how they have more freedom. So you're explaining how they have more freedom, but independence isn't, I guess in a way it is having more freedom, but it's also being able to take care of yourself. Let me just have a quick look. Give me one moment. I need to check something quickly. Okay, so I'm just looking at the meaning of the word independent. So there are two meanings. One is free from outside control, and one is not depending on another person for your livelihood. So you're actually correct. So the problem was I was thinking about the other meaning of independence, that, I'm not I'm not depending on people to, clean up my house after me, cook for me. I'm not depending on people to buy my food. I'm not depending on them to take care of me. But you're right. You're 100% correct, Mamadou. And what I've done is I was thinking so much about the other meaning of independence that I thought this was irrelevant. No, you're completely right. They can enjoy a life that is free from any kind of restrictions. That is because oftentimes families put a lot of bindings on their members. For example, sometimes people eat whatever they want, as different members of family have different preferences. And if someone wants to live in their family, they have to respect those. Okay, good. So you're actually right. My initial response saying that it wasn't appropriate is incorrect. Okay, so let me take your response and let me add it to our screen. Let me add it to the document on screen. Okay. Okay, we can see that? Yeah, okay. So when an individual leaves their home, they can enjoy a life that is free from any kind of restrictions. That is because oftentimes families put a lot of bindings, put a lot of restrictions. No, because we've already said free from restrictions, so I don't want to say that again. Often puts a lot of, let's say, makes a lot of decisions. Families, let's say parents. Parents make a lot of decisions for the family members. For example, sometimes people cannot eat whatever they want, as parents will choose, as the parents choose what to eat each day. And if someone wants to live with their family, they have to respect those decisions. TCIS-IONS. Okay. So that is a fully developed idea. I would say even one thing that I would be concerned about here is that it's too long. What you have to remember is that we are writing an essay with 4 ideas, and I've just looked at the word count. The word count for that is 89. That's 89 words. So is it well developed? Absolutely. It's very well developed. It's a very well developed idea. But the problem then is that it is 89 words. So are we going to write 90 words for each idea? That's going to be like 360 words before we even write our introduction and our conclusion. It's way too long, and we only have 40 minutes. So is it well developed? Absolutely. It's a very, very well developed idea. But the problem is, do we have time to finish our essay? Well, no, not if we continue like this. So what I'm going to have to do in this case is actually remove some of it. Now, obviously, if you're in the test and you're deleting 50 words from your essay, that's not a good idea. So it's not that you're in the test, you write too many words and you delete them. That's not the solution. If you've already written them, I wouldn't delete them. I would just leave them there. But what I'm trying to show you right now is what the essay should look like. So it's not that you write too much, you should delete it. It's that you shouldn't write too much because there isn't time. So just be careful with that. We have 4 ideas. We only need a small amount of development for each idea. We don't have time to fully develop each idea in the way we would if we only had 3 ideas or if we only had 2 ideas in our essay. So that's the point that I'm making here. Not that you should delete parts of your essay, but that you should just write less. Okay, so let's say there, what's that? 56. Yeah, that's about right. So from there, so the other main advantage is that, so what did we say personal development is that these young adults will experience a lot of personal development. Okay. So now we need to develop this idea. So let me just highlight that so that it is clear what we're discussing. And let me just try and get everything on screen again. Okay, so that's what we're talking about now. How can we further develop the idea that they will experience a lot of personal development? Okay, so again, in the comments, let me know how can we develop this idea. And again, I will be able to give you feedback. And once I find something appropriate, then I will add it to the screen. Okay. When they live on their own, they are making their own choices of spending, especially clothing and traveling. They can now freely choose their lifestyle and be more independent. Yep. So that's good. But maybe that you're just giving examples of the type of thing that they can be independent. Can you give me the reason why they're more independent on their own than they are with their parents? So, giving that contrast between the two. So maybe you would say when they live on their own, they are making their own choices of spending, especially clothing and traveling. Whereas when they were living at home, their parents made these decisions for them, and therefore they had less independence. So try and show me how they're more independent now than they were when they were living with their families, not just what types of things they will be independent to do. So not just what they'll be doing, but also, how or why does that happen? They feel fatigue from parents' company. Well, the thing is, Raja, that they're not in their parents' company anymore. They're living on their own. So you would have to focus more on what the situation is now that they're on their own, not what the situation was then. So, you would say the advantage is maybe they feel less fatigue living on their own. So try and focus on what the question is about, not on, the other side. Suicide is the biggest problem for ill-guided youngsters. So more youngsters. Okay, yep. As long as you can explain it clearly, that's fine. This is because they will learn how to manage their expenses and learn new skills such as cooking and cleaning. In other words, they will develop the sense of looking after themselves. Yeah, good. Well done. The second main advantage is better job opportunities in their later life. That is to say that when children will live by themselves, they can choose jobs according to their choices. Okay. I think this is independence as well, though. So that's not a second idea. We already talked about independence as the first idea, and this is independence as well. So no, we wouldn't go with that. There are many reasons. So, okay, they want freedom. So one advantage is, so again, not they want freedom. It's not about why they're doing it. It's about what are the advantages. So not that they want freedom, it's that they will have freedom. So not there are many reasons, there are many advantages. They will have more freedom. They love someone who is not a member of their family. Okay. Another benefit is moving away from the family as early as possible. It forces people to learn new skills. Good. Critical thinking before. Oh, well, actually, they learn new skills, but I would prefer if we focused on one skill. So instead of saying they will learn new skills, choose one skill. Tell me specifically what skill will they learn. Do we have the same problem in our Personal development. No, because that's counted as one thing. But now we have skills as plural, and it seems like you're going to start listing different problem or different skills, and that's not what we want. Critical thinking before making decisions. Good. Some of my cousins could not take care of themselves when they were in Bangladesh. However, now that they're living in Germany, they not only can look after themselves properly, but also help their family members as well by sending them money. Okay, good. They can learn about outlife. Outlife isn't a phrase, Medi, so you're going to have to change that. And feel difficult experience, like how important money in outlife. So maybe life outside the family home. I think that's what you mean by outlife. Maybe you're translating from your own. Maybe you're translating from your own language, where outlife, those two words together, would mean life outside of the family home. But in English, we don't say outlife. We need to say that full phrase. This is one of the major problems when it comes to writing task 2. I need more words to express myself, which makes me frustrated sometimes. How can I improve this? So Mamadul, what you're describing is a lack of vocabulary. So you have the ideas, but you don't have the language to describe those ideas. That's a vocabulary problem. So, the solution is to improve your vocab. And it's a solution that takes a lot of time. It's not something that, you spend a week and suddenly it's fixed. It could take months. It could take months and months. So just continue studying vocab. As you're studying vocab, make sure that you are just learning normal words. What a lot of students do when they're preparing for the IELTS test is they don't want to learn normal words. They want to learn, impressive words. So they end up learning lots and lots of complicated vocabulary that isn't really that useful, and that, it would only be used on very rare occasions, and they don't use it accurately because it's way above their current level. So, don't go chasing, these special words that will magically make you better. Just stay working hard on just basic, everyday, normal vocab that everybody uses all the time. I think that's the main issue that I see with IELTS students, is they're not happy learning normal words. So like when they're studying English, normal words are perfect. They're happy to learn normal words. But when they're reading, when they're studying IELTS, they feel like normal words are no longer good enough. They want to learn some really complicated, uncommon vocab. So just study vocab as if you're studying English, like general English, as you have done, all your life, not some special words for the IELTS test. I think this happens. It's just kind of a misunderstanding of how the IELTS test works, that people think maybe they've read some sample essays and the sample essays had some impressive words and they think, oh, that's what I need to do. I need to use these words. But it's not like that. You should just be using normal words to describe your ideas clearly. Okay, so there are no more comments coming in at the moment. So let me just explain what we'll do. I'll explain what we would need to do in the rest of the essay and we'll finish up there. Okay, so so far we have our introduction. So we paraphrased the question and we said what main ideas we were going to discuss. We had 2 advantages, they're both relevant and specific. We had 2 disadvantages, they were both relevant and specific. We took our first advantage from here. We repeated it. We said that just to make it clear to the reader what we're talking about. So we repeated that idea here again, and then we explained it. Then we took the second advantage, personal development, and we repeated it because the reader needs to know what we're talking about. And again, we would need to develop that, so explain it. And that would be the end of this body paragraph once we finish developing this idea. After that, we need to write another paragraph with the same idea again, but we're focusing on the 2 disadvantages. And then in the conclusion, we'd basically need to repeat everything. So it would be very much the same information that we have here, but repeated again. So it would be, in conclusion, the advantages of young people moving out of their homes as soon as possible are, and then you would repeat those, while the disadvantages are these. So the conclusion would be pretty much the same thing again. Sorry, I got a few comments there, but I got lost. Okay, so we'll just look at these final comments and then we'll finish up here for today. Hatun, however, the disadvantages of this situation are that they will miss their families. So that's one. So we would have to say, however, the disadvantage of this situation is that they will miss their family. But this could be the first sentence of body paragraph 2. That's what we might be looking at here. So it's not, we would still need to develop the previous idea in body paragraph 1, the one I've highlighted on the screen about the personal development. Okay, so just to continue with what you've written here, Hatun, this is owing to their life, half of their life. This is owing to them having lived half of their lives with their THEIR families, comma, and it will be hard to adapt to living alone. So quite a few grammar mistakes there, Hatun. So you're going to have to do some work on your grammar. Domenico, one of the primary advantages of young adults leaving their family homes early is the development of a strong sense of independence. When individuals are no longer under the direct care and supervision of their parents or guardians, they are compelled to learn essential life skills. Good. For example, they must manage finances, cook their meals, clean their living space, and deal with everyday challenges without relying on family members. Very good. Ramalia, what can I do to improve my informal writing? For example, an informal mail, letter to a friend, an article. I need it for my Cambridge CPE exam. I find it way easier to write informally. Formally. You need to learn the type of language. Well, basically, informal letters they're going to sound a lot more like the type of words, the type of English we would use while speaking. So informal writing is far more similar to spoken English. So like formal writing is like what we would look at in an essay, like the essay we're writing today. Informal is more like spoken, much more like spoken English. So if you try to write in the style of spoken English, it would be closer to what we would expect for a formal, what did you say? For formal writing, a letter like that. Yeah. So it would be mainly that. So using kind of a bit more slang and colloquial phrases and informal phrases and phrasal verbs and that type of thing. That would be mainly the difference. Okay, so I think that's all we're going to have time for today. I've got live feedback lessons tomorrow. If you haven't signed up for those, you can click the link in the video description. You can sign up for those lessons and join me on Zoom tomorrow. If you're looking for one-on-one support, that's my email address. Just reach out to me there and we can talk about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I'll be back next week with another live stream. Until then, take care. Best of luck if you have a test, and bye-bye for now.